Accept no substitutes.
Okay, let's just fast forward.
Awawa as well. A woman of faith, certainly Awawa.
Let's fast forward. Fast forward.
Now opening.
When did she come on? Fast forward.
People.
Fast
Also
forward.
scheduled for the meeting.
Fast forward.
In the community.
Fast forward. Fast forward.
Friday.
What time did she come on? Oh, there she is.
As cancerous personal grudges. Let us hope that harsh words can be forgotten and all concerned worked together for the future. That was in 19...
So here she is in the studio with two people wearing her mask, but yet she's at the Ritz with God knows 100 plus and not wearing a mask. Anywho.
November of 1965.
Yeah, but that tells us that cabinet members have a constitutional duty to protect what happened last week.
She seems to give him a little...
I would say that cabinet members have a constitutional duty to protect their mandate that they have received from the legislature. And really, they do not owe any particular mandate to any particular member of cabinet if that loyalty is going to bring the cabinet down. That's the problem that we do not understand. You can like somebody and you can love somebody, but you have a mandate from the legislature, and then a lot of people forget the oath of office that cabinet ministers take. They owe collective responsibility to the Commons, to the House, to the Parliament, and they owe collective responsibility to the cabinet. They do not owe collective responsibility to one member of cabinet. If that member of cabinet is desire for whatever he wants to do, it's going to bring their government down. They have to protect their government, and one of the things that they have to try to prevent is not going to an election before the time mandated by the Constitution. I mean that would not be proper as cabinet members to allow that to happen in their
clearly they don't care about what the people want. But anyway,
folks, we have been joined by the Honorable Julianna O'Connor Connolly, Premier of the Cayman Islands. I know that our Premier, whenever she convenes a meeting or a discussion, she always wants to start with prayer.
Oh, Lord.
I'm going to allow her that opportunity. And then I have an introduction that I want to make to our Premier because all good leaders also have to be good listeners. And she has been labeled, and correctly so, as one of our outstanding listeners. And I will share that with you. Honorable Julianna O'Connor Connolly, good morning, Madam. Welcome to For the Record.
Thank you very much, OC and Dr. Matfield. Let me up front apologize for my voice. It's been some long hours and
oh gosh, what happened to the stream? Hold on. Well, she said it's been some long hours and something. All right, let's wait to see if she's gonna come back on. It looks like it's where did she say I want to apologize? I'm looking at the transcripts to see if we can find this bit.
Doing remarkable work exploring and advocating
that part.
Individuals who have are the recipients of this global being outstanding global listeners.
So what I'm confused about that award, but I'm not going to get too deep into that. How did she get this award? Who nominated her for this? She's considered an outstanding global listener. Oh, wow. I wonder how she got nominated for that. But anyway, let's not go too deep down that rabbit hole.
I'm going to share with you the paragraph that talks about the this is an introduction. Dear listeners, as executive chair of the Listening Center, I have undertaken the additional responsibility of editor of the prestigious newsletter Global Listener. In this responsibility,
and I would like to congratulate you on this outstanding achievement. And didn't know
please.
that
We're gonna
this
fast
was
forward.
even here until I received it this morning from
Well,
you.
nobody knew
And
about this
I must
outstanding list
say that
award. Never heard of it in my life.
I am going to have to also sort of advocating your achievement to another realm, because I think you're probably the most outstanding woman that Cayman has ever produced.
Oh, no.
I think so, because I haven't seen any other women and men for that matter who has achieved
Gave him her
the
resume.
standard that you have achieved. This is the third time that you have been premier.
Second.
The second time.
Yes, sir.
The second time that you have been premier, and always in a critical moment when the country needs stability and leadership, you have always been there. And I wonder
Wow.
if what is it? Is it luck, or is it the divine
Intervention?
ascension from?
No, I think that, excuse me, I can't tell when Mr. Macfield, and by the way, for the record, since Julie is always so prim and proper and must do things a particular way, Mr. Macfield's degree is honorary. And so with honorary degrees, you don't actually address the person as a doctor so-and-so. McKeeva has an honorary degree. Nobody goes around calling him Dr. McKeeva Bush. Barack Obama, all these people have honorary degrees that have been conferred upon them. Not to take anything away from an honorary degree, but the correct thing with an honorary degree is you do not use it in referencing someone's title. So, for all of her accolades, she doesn't know something as simple as that when it comes to basic protocol and what is actually correct and accurate. But nonetheless, I can't tell if Mr. Macfield here is actually being facetious, if he's being funny. I'll finish listening to this, but it does strike me, he didn't even know how many times she's been premier. Oh, this is like your third time? No, it's actually her second time. And he goes on to point out, well, you always seem to emerge out of the ashes during very, very critical. No, because she is part of and parcel of the grab of power. So she is there during these critical moments, rising up. This has nothing to do with divine intervention. I really have a problem when you guys, bring the good Lord into the situation, because this has nothing to do with divine intervention. The good Lord don't get mixed up in this kind of foolishness. He would not condone the amount of flipping and flopping that this woman has done over the years, because to me, it speaks to someone who does not stand as a matter of principle by anything that she really believes in. She is for PIP. You know what that is? The party in power. So whoever is in power, she's there to grab a position. And whenever there's a weakness within the party in power, she's there to grab the premiership. So this, yes, is the second time that she's been premier. And both times she was pivotal in removing the person who was premier before her. First time it was McKeeva Bush. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have been removed. This time around, it was actually Mr. Wayne Panton. This time around, though, Wayne Panton hasn't broken any laws. He hasn't done anything. These people can't even point to anything that the man have done. Everybody's asking, what has he done that would have made him be removed? They can't even say it, even within their own ranks. She's going to give this story, which we're going to listen to here in a second, this cockamamie story about how, it was just a fluke because he was at the hospital with his driver who dropped down and almost died that night after Parliament. And then Miss Heather was there as well. So because they weren't there, I just by default became the next leader of this country. That's a bold-faced lie. Caller, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Sandra.
Good morning, dear.
I don't know if you were here on island at the time being, but shortly after Ivan, 2004, McKeeva was given something like $10 million to help people with repairs and the people that, lost many things. lucky for many people, they just lost a roof. But in any case, that was what he was supposed to do with it. He took it and he gave to the churches, because the churches holds more people than or used to. At that time they did, because everybody was Christian then, just after Ivan. And it is still some half-finished churches that had begun after he gave them the money. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, my memory leads me, it was some in the BRAC, and the BRAC also gave back some of the money, some churches, and the Wesleyan Church gave back half of theirs, I think, and it went on and on and on. But still a lot of half-finished churches. One in which just recently I understand that the government had to purchase somewhere up there in Borden Town area. Huge thing, and I'm understanding that it is now for a hurricane shelter. I, in particular, used to get on OC show many times and beg for a hurricane shelter or a multi-purpose hall that could even hold meetings, and you would understand that. To be built in West Bay, because all we had at that time was the school hall. And then the primary school hall. And then a few other churches came in line, including the John Gray, and said that they would make theirs hurricane shelter. And so they did. Okay. Mm-hmm. Putting that aside, McKeever, I don't know whether he received it or not, but it was said that he paid a certain church that because he went all over the place at different churches, and he, clean hands and a pure heart business. But he could have came out of the Bananas nightclub the night before, if you get what I mean. And other people that's listening to your show would understand this as well. The church decided not to, and he went to Jamaica. Now, I know this for sure. Whether he got it as a doctorate degree, I do not know. But he went to Jamaica to some of those churches up there. My husband was flying the flight. I went to the airport to pick him up, and I was surprised to see how many people from the Wesleyan Church was there to greet him and go on like Jesus, God had just walked off the plane. And I said, why are they here? Mm-hmm. Anyway, long story short, he still put doctor in the front of his name. In fact, he has so many things behind his name. Mm-hmm. I don't know anybody at Health City got that amount of things, and they're doggone good doctors. Most of them are the ones that I've been to. I praise them.
Yes.
But make I tell you, McKeever got a lot to feel guilty for the same little island. Bad reputation and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Julianna no better than anybody else. I don't know how anybody could be best woman and the best this in this island, because she know better than me. She may hold a position that's supposed to help all of us in this island. So, and what I do, I ain't gonna brag it, but I have helped many people and still doing so because I know they are worse off than me. But it's not necessary to brag them things because you do it with a kind heart. You don't do it because you call yourself a Christian and you get on Facebook with a mask trying to talk to people. Excuse me, but good morning, Sandra. I could go on darling. For the whole day, but
no, we won't let
I
that.
know other people there.
Thank you, my love. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
So just to put this in context, what this was, and I had to remind myself because, of course, I was like, wait a minute, money again? What this was, folks, was a nation building fund. So this was a fund that McKeeva Bush set up himself that he then used to fund different things. And I must say that there were some legitimate people who got from it. And then the churches, which was always a big question mark, they really benefited from it because in 2000, 2005, and 2009, he actually campaigned on the pledge that government would assist churches. And of course, we all know that this is vote buying. Let's not slice this any way but the truth. So this is the biggest version of vote buying that we've seen in this country. It's the same thing that Julianna just did. I tell you, they're playing and they're using the exact same playbook from each other. She's trying to vote buy with the civil service by giving y'all $1,500 for December, which she know the civil service can't afford. Not only can the civil service not afford it, the country, which spends half of its budget, almost $500 million of $1 billion budget, right? That we are spending money on, half of that goes to maintaining the civil service. We can't afford it, but she doesn't care about that. She's gonna put her children in debt, put us in debt, put her grandchildren in debt, just to be able to say, oh, I gave y'all $1,500, and who's gonna turn down the $1,500? Nobody, because everybody could use $1,500, right? So nobody's gonna turn it down, and she's not giving you it's not optional. You can't turn it down. They're going to just put it in your bank account. Of course, y'all going to go and spend that on Christmas stuff. So what McKeeva Bush did, and you can go back and have a look at the Auditor General's report, where they evaluated the management of the Nation Building Fund. They say that the government failed to effectively manage the millions of dollars of public money funded under the Nation Building Fund that led to significant waste and abuse of public funds. And the project also created the potential for corruption. We saw people, wasn't it that same guy that took the fall for him, Richard Parchment? Wasn't he in the mix with this? With one of his kids or one of them, a lot of them were getting all kind of money. Oh, my kid's going to school overseas. They were getting money to pay for children. And there was no, absolutely no control. Nobody was monitoring the report cards of the kids to see if they were maintaining their grades. There were some who they knew fell beneath the required GPA, and they were still getting the money, and they never had to pay it back. And some of these parents are in a financial position to not need any scholarships, and they were still hemorrhaging this nation building fund. So one of the areas that there was a lot of money being wasted was some 15 churches that received funds for construction of buildings and infrastructure. And this Auditor General's report said that the risk that these funds provided to churches were used for other than the intended purpose was very high. Because again, nobody asked for receipts. No one said, okay, this is like $100,000. We need to see $100,000 worth of construction. They go on to say there was a lack of record keeping, that the churches and files held by the recipients found little documentation to support how the money was actually spent. In one case, a church received more than $1 million for construction without any plan for how it would obtain the remaining $3 million it needed to complete the building. This is just foolish. And this goes back to what we said on Friday's program, that you are electing officials who are wasting the people's money, and then you wonder why we're in the fiscal position that we're in? Listen, $3 million, giving that to a church, that's a lot of money that could help a lot of people in a significant and meaningful way. They had a 2-page letter from the church, which saw that the government had made oral commitments to partner with the church in financing and completing the project, but there was, again, nothing in writing. And Julie was part of this government at the time as well. This is all the foolishness. So the 10 largest grants were given to churches range from $122,585 to $1.3 million apiece. And I can tell you that the irony of this, this is something that really, really annoys me. That Church of God Town was one of the churches that remained unbuilt. They have a 20 million square foot building costing $5 million. Really? Do you think the Lord needs a 20 square foot building to know that you guys actually love him? Like, what kind of foolishness is this? The construction of that hall began in 2010, all now and not finished. Anyway, of all of the misuse of funds and the ridiculousness, the lack of documentation, and all this stuff that happened in the Nation Building Fund, I stand on record today to tell you that the only person that they came after criminally in relation to that Nation Building Fund was me. And it was all politically motivated. You can believe that? And I didn't get anywhere near. It was for a paralegal course that was being offered. What was it? $30,000, $40,000, right? A paralegal course that was being offered that people, Caymanians, were actually going to benefit from, had a contract in writing, had documentation in writing, and they still came after me. And I'm the only person connected to the Nation Building Fund that they decided to come after. But thank the God that the court system works, because the judge told the jury to throw this foolishness out. You can imagine? Of all the millions of dollars that were wasted just on churches alone. But anyway, let's not digress. Let's get back to Judy Santa. So, like I said, I don't know.
From the greater creator of the universe. What is it, Mom?
Well, for me, that answer is quite easy, one that I don't have to rehearse or prepare, because not only has he founded it and established it, but from the age of 11, I totally surrendered to the Lord. I have not been perfect. I'm a human being. But one thing I know, I have a pure heart, and it is my desire that I'm just a transient. My rollover comes at death. People fear it. I look forward to it because it takes you to utopia that we have, as Paul said, and Paul the Apostle said, that we can be beaten down, but there's never a TKO for a Christian. It's always perhaps a step down, preparation for a step up. With the God that I serve, it's based on humility and love, like Lord Denon said in the case Stevenson and Donahue. Who's our neighbor? I've always taken the approach that regardless of what side of the aisle I found myself on, my primary consideration was that I was there on behalf, firstly, for the people of Little Cayman, but by extension, everyone in the Cayman Islands. And like Manly said, I have an empathy and a sympathy for all mankind, but my greatest is for the persons I have been humbled and honored to serve for the past almost 30 years.
Well, we are grateful that you have always been there. And when I left on Tuesday evening, after the vote, I was there the whole day. I was there when the motion was announced, the motion of no confidence in your government was announced. And I was there until when the vote came. And I left that evening thinking, how long is it going to be before we find stability? And how long it's going to be? Then I was start thinking about Mrs. Thatcher, Mrs. May. I think she took 3 days before she could find a majority. And I think there was another member of Prime Minister who took 7 days. And I was surprised when they called me the next afternoon and says the Deputy Premier had formed the government and was leading the cabinet and had gone to the governor and because that really that relieved my mind and the country, because I say we cannot and should not be going to an early election now. This is not the time for that. And I was so happy that you put together a group, a coalition, and that you now lead in the country. And I am so happy that you were able to do that? Because I spoke to you sometime.
Let me just say this. I mean, Mr. Matfield might be happy, but I can assure you that very few other people are happy, because I had people from all walks of life saying, what can we do about this? We do not want her as premier. How can they do this without the input of the people? And of course, the Constitution allows it. So she didn't do anything unconstitutional or anything against the Constitution. This is exactly, Mr. Matfield is right about that. This is precisely what the Constitution allows for. It does not mean that it was the will of the people. And it does not mean that the people are happy with what she's done yet again in order to obtain power for herself. So let me just be very, very crystal clear about that element of this story. So yes, they were in a precarious situation with this 9-9 split. The easiest thing that they could have done to resolve it was for Kathy to step down from Speaker of the House, come down and join the government, which she eventually did anyway, and simply bring someone from outside of Parliament to become Speaker of the House. And they knew that that was also an alternative, that they could have done that. But instead, let's continue to listen to how all of this played out.
Some weeks ago, and you had informed me that perhaps that you are going to lead your church in the next couple of years, and here you are now leading the country again. And I wonder, is it God sent, or is it coincidence, or just history? To me, I would like to go home to convince that spirituality and that godliness and that exists in our midst, despite the fact that we be in chaos.
Well, Mr. Matfield, for all of your wisdom at the good old age of, I think he's about pushing 89 now, and he's a very smart man. For you to ask this question, it's either a rhetorical question and you know the answer already, and you're just, playing along to get along, or if you're really believing what it is that you're saying, that means that you've been hoodwinked by Julianna O'Connor Connolly. Now, knowing how incredibly smart you are, sir, I do not believe that you've been hoodwinked. I think that, like everybody else over at Radio Cayman, you guys toe the line, right? So you say she's now premier of the country, and we're going to go on to listen to how she's pledging to give Radio Cayman more money. That promise came right during this show. Lots of vote buying, lots of trying to buy favors, buy loyalty is happening now in this country, and that's going to be her MO for the next, I guess, 14 months. So you're kissing her behind because you're in Radio Cayman. I guess you want to continue to remain in Radio Cayman, and she has the power to say, you might have to go. Somebody says this is the height of duplicitousness, and this is why they do not trust or like certain individuals.
You are the person.
This has nothing to do with divine intervention. This has nothing to do with doing the right thing. This has nothing to do with someone who has been guided by the principles of leadership based on Christianity, because this woman does not embody those principles. And you can't show me anywhere in the Bible where the good Lord would be condoning how many times she has flipped and flopped and cut people's throats in order to get a position. She could have fallen back and even given it to Andre. And I told you guys, and I'm making it very, very publicly known because y'all need to know, she refused before they even went to the vote of the House. There was negotiations where Wayne Panton was like, you know what? I'm the type of person, it's not about me. I will step aside. Andre can become premier. He just got us off the blacklist. He's done this, this, and this. And she refused to allow that to happen. Ask yourselves why. Is she any more qualified than him? Well, she's more qualified at throat cutting than Andre, that's for sure.
Who always are there to steady the Cayman ship,
calm the waters
as it sails on.
Okay, well, Doc, with that, we're going to take a commercial break. When we return, we're going to pass the mic over to our Premier, Honorable Julianna O'Connor Connolly, and who has been recognized as an outstanding listener as well. And
so
in this article, they
she holds the distinction. It's so funny that they're reading from Loop, but she holds the distinction of being the only Caymanian lady who has been premier twice as well as speaker twice. And of course, you know, he's again the co-host, Mr. Matfield, is wondering whether or not this is, he says, luck, divine intervention, or what, knowing how extremely religious she is. There is some belief that it could be divine intervention. I can tell you that in my humble opinion, it has nothing to do with that. We did have a caller. Sorry, caller. I wasn't sure if I disconnected you or what happened there. So he expresses some surprise, as you just heard, about how the government was put together and how quickly it happened. He said even in the UK, it took him 3 days. And this throat cutting took less than 24 hours.
Hello?
Yes, hi, morning. Were you trying to call the show? Sorry, I saw a call
Yes,
come
I
in.
think I must have got cut off.
Oh
anyway.
gosh, sorry.
But that's it. No, that's okay. It's just simple. It is on the page. It's called Cunning Schemes and Craftiness. It's an envy and self-presumption. So that's it. It's not necessarily intervention or this or that or these other things do exist, you know.
Yes.
So
Yes,
anyway,
thank you
have a
so
good
much.
day.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
All right, folks. 9362626. So let's see if we can fast forward through the commercials and get back.
Humility and good manners go where money can't go. Obviously, you both know that I come from a family that's a decent family, but it's not one of wealth. And so I go through my devotions.
Good morning.
And this morning I found that.
Morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Miss Sandra.
Morning, dear. How are you?
I'm glad that Miss Julia listened this morning to say it would be a concern and Mr. McAllister's land that she is involved with of putting it in the ground. I need to come and see you tomorrow to bring all of the documents because this land belongs to us and they took it and she's involved with it. It is her.
Let me make this let me make this recommendation, right? Because I know my schedule, you're definitely not gonna see me tomorrow. And what I would say is let's just go ahead and book you now for which day you're gonna come on the show. You can send all your documents on WhatsApp. So let's go ahead and book you for this Friday. Are you available this Friday?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So let's book you for this Friday. His call got disconnected. Let me call him back. Flo, y'all working on that toll-free number for me? It'd be handy right about now.
Yes, ma'am. I heard you.
Yes. So what I'm saying is I'm going to send you the link. Just shoot me a quick WhatsApp message. Any documents.
I will call you after show. You gave me a number already.
Yes. All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, there. All right. So we'll have him come on the show to talk about the situation. I don't really know much about it, but we need to obviously see what's going on there. All right. So let's continue dissecting this. This was again last Monday, her appearance on Radio Cayman with Mr. Oric Connor for the record. Her first public
interesting. It talked about two masters, and if you would indulge me, I'd just like to read a short synopsis. It said, "No one can serve two masters, for you will hate one and love the other. You'll be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to money. Many of the plans in our lives tend to revolve around money." And I won't go through the rest, but that will give me the springboard to say that you can't serve two masters. Our boss are the people who put us in. And I am...
What? What did you do? Hold on. Let me pull a marker there. Our boss are the people who put us in. But you're not listening to the people. The people didn't even want you as education minister. We were all shocked when Premier Panton took you on board and allowed you to keep that ministry. We were like, what? Oh my God. Oh, this is crazy. Lord have mercy. No, sir. So you're listening to the people? Are you sure? Are you sure you're listening to the people? Because I don't think you are listening to the people. This is who you're serving, the people? Can we clip that for future use, please? Because this woman not listening to the people. None at all. Okay, let's continue to hear what she says. She would have done what she did.
Quite really, to see that the master shift has been systemic. We're now masters to parties and to individuals, and that's not what we're called to do. We're called to be servants of the people. And I think that there is still a vacuum for servant leaders. And Cayman Islands, I don't make no apologies, I feel is the best place this side of heaven. And they deserve no less than servant leaders. And I'm not saying I'm the only one. I'm not saying that for some forensic analytical discussion about previous leaders or the former premier. I'm just saying that when we get to a place where people sit in houses with remote controls via financial, economic influence and control what happens in Parliament, it's time for change. And I think that change has come. And for me, I have nothing to lose. Most people are afraid of the bullying that comes, and there is bullying. I mean, with capital letters that will come. But for me as a Christian, death is an elevation. So I fear none of them. And they have been threats along the way, including even now. But one thing I know, when I forsook my upward trajectory with Truman Bodden and company, where I could have been a partner today like the rest, and decided that I would offer whatever skills God had given me for my people. I never got involved.
You didn't have high standards, honey child. Okay, I don't know what she's talking about. What is she saying about people in the background? And I'm trying to dissect this because I don't actually know what she's going on about. With remote controls, controlling people. Julie, you need to try to be honest, because if you're trying to say that there's you haven't had a negotiation with anybody outside of Parliament and no one helped to broker this deal and put you where you are, and there are people controlling people. If you're trying to say that never happened and you weren't part of those discussions and you weren't part of that power play, then we know that you're straight up being dishonest, because I know that for myself. I'm not in a position, because those people sit behind the scenes, to tell you exactly who they are. But without a doubt, there are players behind the scenes. And Julie has been in communication with those players. And she has agreed at some level to what those players said. These are the options that you guys have. Because, of course, they would have been in favor of removing Wayne Panton, because he's not for big developers and he's not for, they see him as an issue with this National Conservation Council. So if you're going to speak on these things, and, kind of slide it in there for people who are actually really, really paying attention, what you need to do is tell the people the cold, hard truth. So there are forces behind the scenes, and there are people with a remote control, and they're controlling you too. I mean, I don't know, you're talking about you getting threats. Nobody not threatening you, lady. The only thing that people could possibly threaten you about is giving you some help with your appearance. That's the only thing people are probably like, girl, if you don't get rid of those Crocs, I'm going to buy you some new shoes. And I wouldn't take that too seriously as a threat, because obviously you're going to hold fast to your clothes. So Ms. Renita says mouth can say anything. It's the doing the work that counts. And, she talks about how, she could have stayed on this professional trajectory of becoming a partner at Truman Bodden. Well, not to say, is Truman Bodden Law Firm still around even? I mean, I don't even know if they're still around. I don't think so. I think they've merged into something else. But not to say anything bad about Truman Bodden, but if that was the end goal, they were considered a very small firm, right? If you're talking about someone who is going after prestige and whatever, you don't want to be a partner at Truman Bodden. You don't want to be a partner at Walker's or Maples or like a larger firm where probably the salary at Truman Bodden would be laughable. So it's so funny that she said that as though that was like, ooh, that was going to be a big career move for her. I'm not really quite sure what that's about. And Rusty says she wears Crocs because her feet are swollen. And listen, as someone who has feet related and foot issues, I can totally understand wearing appropriate shoes. They might not always look the best, but you do wear shoes for comfort. So, I mean, I'm not necessarily wearing Crocs. And there are actually some really nice looking Crocs out there, I should tell you, because a lot of times I'm wearing Crocs and people don't even know that they're Crocs. But I do get that a lot of times you can't always wear like closed-toe shoes for long periods of time or whatever because of that. But Albert says, get over it. Wayne is not premier anymore. Sour grapes. Well, Albert, thank you for joining the program. But if you're paying attention, this has nothing to do about sour grapes, but it has everything to do with she's the leader of this country, and she's said a lot, even about how she has come into power. And so we need to dissect how much of this is truthful, because it isn't truthful is the problem. So it has nothing to do with sour grapes. It has to do with let us set the record straight and tell the cold hard truth, as opposed to going on the record with lies. Okay?
Been outside business, no contracts. And so when I put my head in the bed at night, none of them can call me and say, this is how I want you to vote, or this is who I want in the government. I owe absolutely no obligation to anyone except the people of the Cayman Islands, and in particular Cameron East. And I just wanted to say that. And so you'll never see a for sale sign on me. And once you set yourself up on that trajectory, darts will come. But I always find consolation that for the darts to hit me in the back, it means I'm at least one step in front. And so, a good way of looking at it. I understand that even the new composition of the government is not a panacea. There'll be at best 50% happy and 50% not happy. If I get 1% over that, and I think I'm pretty good. But one thing I have said from the start, I'm not going to sit down and be a leader that allows my colleagues to bully or embarrass the civil service or any member of the public. And that's very clear and a non-starter. I understand that there will be times that we have to challenge them because we are individuals. And so we are the buffer, the arbiter between the public and the civil service. But at the same time, they are the hub of the wheel. I've been a civil servant myself, and I understand that if we don't treat them like human beings, and I say that not because I couldn't find an adjective, but from past experience, in particular the past 2 years, then we're going to get where we got, where even persons from the Attorney General office were apprehensive of coming into caucus to give advice.
So let me address this, because this is very, very interesting. Let's see what else she says about this, and then I do want to address this.
How can we take our country forward when they're the principal legal advisor? For me, yes, I'm an attorney, but that's not my role that I play. And I appreciate the distinction of the separation of powers and the role clarity. So I made that out front. As a Bible believer, when things started to move, and it seemed like the darkest hours before sunrise, and you wondered whether should I stay, should I go home back to the Brackby farm or get in the church, which I'm sure some people would probably have some fireworks from Graham if that happened. But I know that Caymanians are common sense people. And OC and Dr. Steve, from the colossal amount of expressions of gratitudes and platitudes that have come, not just from within our jurisdiction, but absolutely from all over. Having been, on the executive of CPA for a number of years, I got to know a lot of members of the Commonwealth. And not one of them have come and said they're disappointed with the outcome. And I set 6 fleeces out. Those of you who are biblical scholars would understand what that means. And before this happened, 5 of them have been answered. There's 1 yet to go, but I still believe that will come in due course.
Excellent.
All right, so let me talk about this, because she says something about basically what we've been talking about for a very long time here in this program, the disrespect that some members of this government, which are still there, by the way, have shown to the public service, or shown to civil servants, I should say, and the way in which that they have treated them. Now, I think that Minister Andre, now Deputy Premier, also alluded to this during his abstention, that, we all need to raise the bar. He needs to do better, and he's expecting his other people. The thing that I don't understand about this, you're sitting in cabinet with these other people who are being disrespectful to the governor, their previous governor. They're being disrespectful to each other. They're being disrespectful to the civil servants. Why have you not spoken up before? It's a simple question. You are a woman, you claim of the cloth, you claim of faith, et cetera, right? Disrespecting people cannot be something that would be condoned by any right-minded Christian. So why have you sat in cabinet and allowed it to happen. We've never heard that Miss Julie is on top of these guys saying you can't behave this way. You know, if she felt like Ween wasn't able to control them as deputy premier, even when she became deputy premier, what did she do in order to curtail this behavior? By all accounts, she did nothing. She sat there, said nothing, and did nothing, right? A lot of women were targeted by the former deputy premier, Chris Saunders, in government, civil servants. What did you do? You've not even spoken to a single one of those women to give them any religious comfort, much less anything else. So now you sit here talking about, the behavior and how they were treating, you were once a civil servant, so you know how that feels, blah, blah, blah. If that is true, then I'm even more confused about why you did what you did, which was nothing. You didn't speak up. You didn't look out for anyone. And the one time that you claim to have done it in relation to Bernie Bush and another civil servant in that situation, you had to lie and fabricate the facts of how that happened. You claimed that, you stepped in and nobody else had done anything about it up until that point. And you know that that's a lie. There were meetings, there's documentation, there are minutes from meetings where even when Premier Panton was not here, he had his staff on top of this, meeting with the victim and finding out what had transpired and what had happened. Making Bernie issue an apology, which both her and her lawyer came back and said that they were happy with the apology until they started to ask for $750,000. So you jump in and claim that no one else had done anything about the situation until the 11th hour when you decided to step in and made Bernie apologize, but you know that's not true. And not only do you know that that's not true, the entire cabinet office knows that's not true. The former premier of the Cayman Islands knows that that's not true. So if you're such a great and outstanding person, why is it that you had to create this particular narrative and make things up that just are not true? Like, I don't understand that. It makes zero sense. So we have Ann Bond, who's never here. This looks like a fake account, but Ann says, you love to pull down everything. Truman Bodden and Company was a reputable law firm. No one said that it wasn't, Ann. And if you listen to the program, you would know and you would understand. The point is, she's claiming that if she was really interested in money, she would have stayed at Truman Bodden and become a partner there. My point is, no, she wouldn't have. She would have gone to Maples and Calder or Walker's, and she would have stayed there and become partner because their paycheck trumps Truman Bodden. I don't care how reputable Truman Bodden was. Their paycheck is nothing compared to what a partner at Maples would be making. That's not even lunch money in a week for the people over at Maples and Walker's. That's the point. I'm just saying that her story that she's using to say, if I was really all about money, I would have stayed and become a partner at Truman Bodden. That might be okay money, but that's not real partner money. There's secretaries who probably make what partners at Truman Bodden make. I'm just saying. That's the point. And do yourself a favor. Don't come and jump in the classroom in the conversation when you're not a regular over here and you don't actually pay attention to anything that's really going on. And it has nothing to do with tearing down that law firm. Okay? All right, folks. For the record, pun intended, we're obviously going to go into overtime a little bit now. So if you're on the radio, feel free to join us on our stream. We've got both YouTube and Facebook stream up. We're on the backup YouTube channel this morning. So feel free to jump in. We'll go ahead and disconnect the feed here shortly for our radio listeners. You guys have a pleasant day and we'll be back tomorrow. Like I said, I've been trying to get through this thing. We got 318 comments already on today's show. I've been trying to get through it and come hell or high water. Oh, I do have an appointment today, though. I've got an acupuncture appointment. Oh, God. What time is my appointment? Hold on. Let me double check because I do need to go. My shoulders kill me. So I do need to go for this appointment. Oh, it's at 11 o'clock. So we can't go too far into overtime this morning in any event. But let's continue listening and we can go a little bit longer. All right. I'm going to go ahead and cut off the radio because I think we're off of the radio now anyway. Radio folks, have a good one. Yes, honey, chill. All right, so let's continue listening to this diatribe full of lies.
So, ma'am, how is it that you were able on so many occasions to, as primus inter pares, as first among equals, as the leader of men. How are you able to get them to follow you on so many different occasions, and to have harmony in the system in which you lead?
Well, let's be very cautious here of this question, because she's not getting people to follow her. That's not how dictators work. That's not how Judases work. That's not how cutthroats work. They leave you with no option. So if we were to take an honest poll, of whether people actually want her, maybe that should be this week's poll, if they even want her there, even within her own grouping. I can tell you, she said something about 50-50 earlier. I can tell you it's probably more like 80% don't want her there. And she's making up the other 20%. So this is a cold hard truth, folks. How many of her existing ministers would have chosen her, even say over Andre? I can tell you that nope. They didn't want her there. They don't want her there. And I'd have no fear of contradiction with that one.
I just don't understand it. To me, I keep probing this to you because it seems to me that you have to have some guides, divine guidance from somewhere. It just doesn't come politically. It has to be that there is something about you that allow the men in the country to select you at every gesture when there's a chaos to sort it out.
Well, I think the operative word, Dr. Steve, is select you. I have never, ever campaigned for any of the positions. I just made myself available because I am a conduit of change for the Lord. And he has orchestrated it so many times in my life. I remember back when I was first asked by the PPM to be speaker. I was in the hottest campaign of my life on the BRAC in more than one way. I won my seat, but the government lost. I think Honorable McKeever Bush was the only one from that group that won at that time. And so I did as I always did. I came to a Prospect where my house was at the time, and I fasted and prayed from the Thursday morning until after 1 when I received a call from Sir Alden. But what he did not know then before he called, I was lying in my bed fasting and praying. And again, it just came to me, and I never expected any part except being as a lone wolf crying in the wilderness in opposition. You're going to be Speaker of the Cayman Islands, clear as day. And when he called, this is what he said: "Good afternoon, Madam Speaker." There was no discussion to ask whether I wanted it or anything. And because I had readied myself to be of service to the Lord, I said, sure. And it takes that. I could have said, you guys spent the last 6 weeks beating me out of the water, ever shape or form. But I'm not there in a popularity or beauty contest. I'm there to serve my people. So if it means mopping the floor to LA, or it means being the premier, I've prepared myself through the mercies of God. And from the very beginning, every single day, several times a day, I can't tell you who put that seed in my mind, but from a young girl, the Bible verse where that if you lack wisdom, you can ask for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And I ask for that even now, every day, because every day you can learn. It's a journey. And so Sir Alden said to me, well, can we send a document to you to the BRAC to sign? I said, I'm here in Grand Cayman. And he told me where they were at the PPM headquarters in Koo Road. And I said, I don't need to sign a document. If this is going to start, it has to start with trust. I'll be there in a few minutes. And I was there, and history is the rest of it. And then he realized that you needed 10. They had 9 at the time. And he had asked me to go down to the Parliament to meet because there were some young members to assist with procedure. I went down there. He came, he was talking to the clerk, Ms. Zena. I overheard from the Speaker's office the difficulty where they would have to come to the floor to vote because the then governor would not automatically do it. So I asked if I could have a word with him. He came in the chamber. I spoke with him, and he said, but I don't have 10. I said, you're looking at the 10 person now. And I wasn't a PPM member, but if that's what it took to form the government without going down, have a chaos, I did it. And I think it takes that understanding, again, coming back to listen. God gave us 2 ears. We listen twice as much as we talk. Because sometimes through talking, and you'll notice even in Parliament, I only speak when I feel that it's absolutely necessary, because it doesn't make any sense getting up and speak for 2 hours just to say that you spoke. When I speak, I spoke. Okay. If you follow the gist of that. Not so good English.
Okay, we're going to take a commercial break.
All right.
Premier.
So El Rey says fleeces sent out and most have been answered. The only fleeces is the fleecing of the country. Miss Rena is doing a hand over the face. Gabby says, tell him, Sandy. Rough Seas says, Mr. OC and Mr. McFeel, they both have to be about 80 plus years old. What advice can you give us about the future? Moya says, that's because the first time was short-lived. Now it's the same scenario. Let's see how long she holds the title. Marshall says, I'm surprised that C. McFeel didn't know that she was premiered twice. I don't know. It's a hot mess. But, you know, she talks about how she became speaker. And you know what is so interesting about this concept of divine intervention that they keep, you know, Mr. McFeel, with all due respect, keeps saying, well, wow, this must be divine intervention. There was a time when kings and queens also ruled by divine intervention. That's what they told the poor people, that it is God's will that we reign over you. And we saw how well monarchs did, how much they did for the people, how little that they did for the people, and how they destroyed and pillaged in the whole 9 yards. So don't let anybody tell you that God has any part in this about divine intervention and it's God's will. She said that she's here to serve the people first and foremost, and she should be concerned about the people's will. These are all convenient words as far as I'm concerned. Everybody is entitled to their opinion, but I don't think she's in service of anybody other than herself. And that's my honest opinion. She's always there to grab a position, not because she's the only person that's willing to serve. It's because that they all know that she's very, very pliable. And that's the best way that I can say it without being any, you know, being disrespectful to her. They all know that she's always there waiting to be with the party in power. So, you know, yeah.
When we return, and you've spoken about you being speaker not on one occasion, but more than one occasion, and I want you to relate to our listening and viewing audience how that has also prepared you for the leadership role, being able to.
So let's go ahead and skip forward.
Continues right now.
After his coalition with the PPM, or Progressive Movement, or we go to an election. It was quite easy for me to not do the election, not because I don't think that if I did it, I wouldn't have as good as chance as anyone else in an early election, but we had a budget that's incomplete. We have authority to spend up until midnight on the 31st of December, and of course it's Christmas, so I wasn't going to be the Scrooge and get the blame for going to election. But even besides that, usually you look, and you've been there before, 6 weeks, but preferably 8 weeks to election. We didn't have the space, and it would have taken us past the midnight on the 31st before we could get into an election. Mm-hmm. You know, even if you didn't allow new voters to come and just use the list that you had. And who wants to be involved in political campaigning in the middle of Christmas? Exactly. I wasn't going to do that. So that came off the list. So it left going with the PPM or forming a government within the South. Attempts had been made in various matrices before that with the PPM, and for whatever reason, which I don't feel I have the permission at this stage to say, truth has a way of finding the surface.
So let's be very clear about what she doesn't want to tell you all is that, yes, she was in talks with the progressives. Remember what John said. Go back to what he said, because he told some truths, right? Remember when he said, and I think this might have been during his interview with what's his name, Mario, but don't hold me to that, where he said it, but he was telling people that the plan was he would jump first. He didn't mention anybody by name, but he said several others were supposed to follow. One of those several others that was supposed to follow would have been Julianna O'Connor Connolly. But they all left John out to dry. because they saw that we still are not going to have the numbers. It was only because at that point they had not convinced what's his name? McKeever Bush. They had not convinced McKeever Bush to come aboard because he was still talking about somebody needed to pay him and look into the premier with his greased hands open, say, okay, you can't get these charges dropped against me, at least give me some money. And because the premier was not, the former premier, Mr. Wayne Panton, was not prepared to pay McKeever off, then it became, okay, I'm available. I am for sale. Who's going to buy me out? It took them some negotiating. That's why it didn't happen in such quick order as when John left. So John even started second guessing himself. And he was out there telling people how stupid he was for having jumped ship, lost a ministerial position, and the rest of them are still sitting there. So she is right. And that's why she doesn't want to talk the truth. Tell the people everything. What is there to hide at this point in time? If you're divinely appointed and you have the protection and the shield from God, speak your truth. But she knows she can't speak it because y'all would be shocked at the duplicitous nature of the horse trading and everything that has been going on from the night of election. It's been a constant back and forth. And there's a lot of people who would have warned Wayne Panton about even bringing her on the inside because that's how PPM knew everything that was going on with this government. And then they turned around, which was a power play by Chris Saunders to bring John in. That was his power play because internally they were trying to get rid of Wayne as well. It has been a lot of duplicitousness. Y'all have no idea. Trust me. Unbelievable.
Season, it probably will find its surface. But suffice to say, we all then congregated. We had an issue of numbers because all politics are local and all politics are numbers.
Yes.
And so once I started doing the matrices and explaining, we decided that the vote was going to win because enough people committed that they weren't necessarily happy with all of the transactions and the conflicts that comes from bringing all independents together with no commonality, no party, no discipline. It's a new thing it's not the first thing, but you have a combination of young people that hadn't been there before, but had the heart and the competency to do it. So there was a lot of conflicting, moving parts, and everybody knew it was going to be a challenge. I understand there were bets that we were going to fall apart from the 1st December.
Well,
but like Marl Harcourt, I still sing, if I can make it through December, everything's going to be all right. And take it 1 year at a time. And so I knew then that the task would be to try to get John and McKeever back on board because it's just so much numbers, The Honourable Chris Saunders, I realized what had happened there wasn't that he was off the list. In fact, he did come to the meeting, but he left. And then it just left the 6 from the PPM. And I knew what their position was at the time. A couple of us knew what their positions were at the time. So it was just left with the 12 that's there. As I said, the Premier and Miss Heather had been at the hospital with Norman. And I mean, what's the coincidence of that happening? But it did happen. And after he left the hospital, he took the decision to go to his home, and so did Heather. So it left the 11 or so, whatever number, 10, 11 that was there. I think Mr. Burney didn't come. Yes, Mr. Burney was there as well. And they came into the room after I had spoken to John. John basically said, I'll come if X doesn't happen. McKeever said to Minister Andre, I'll come if X doesn't happen. You can figure out what the X is. Yes. And so as we got...
So this thing with Norman, I'm actually trying to look at the transcripts because in the transcripts, I see his name mentioned twice. So I don't know at what point she first made mention of him. I'm just trying to see. Give me 1 second here. Let me see if I can actually find it in the transcripts. Because what I do know, so she said, so after we left the parliament that night, after Assistant Norman, to the best that Minister of Health, myself, could do, 911 was called and he went. The Premier and Miss Heather went to the hospital to accompany him. And so the rest of us, because the Premier had indicated to Minister Andre that he was prepared to resign, we then had 3 options. We form a government within ourselves. We try to do a coalition with the PPM, a progressive movement, or we go to an election. It was quite easy for me to not do the election, not because I don't think that if I did, I wouldn't have a good chance as anyone else in an early election, but we had a budget that's incomplete. This is what she says. We had authority to spend up until midnight on the 31st of December. And of course, it's Christmas. I wasn't going to be the Scrooge and get the blame for going to election. But even besides that, usually you look and you've been there before. Well, you've been there before 6 weeks, but preferably 8 weeks to election. We don't have the space and it would take. And so then she goes on about this whole midnight thing. So, I mean, what she has said here is completely not accurate and is a lie. Yes, the premier and Heather Bodden, because they were concerned about Norman, they didn't know what had happened with him, why he passed out. Did he have a heart attack? What was the situation? They did go to the hospital with him. But I don't think that the instructions were, oh, I've already resigned. I'm prepared to resign. Go and do whatever you want without me. And then they turned around and begged her to become leader. That isn't what has happened. So I think that unfortunately, this is where her version of the truth leaves a lot to be desired simply because it isn't true. I got to get to my 11 o'clock appointment. I can't miss this one today. My poor shoulder is suffering for it. So Salvin says, Sandra, as a woman, shouldn't you be cutting the premier some slack? I dare ask, shouldn't you be supporting her even if it's in the best, even if it is supporting her, even if it's in the best interest of the country? What do you mean, even if? If it wasn't the best interest of the country, I'd be supporting her whether she wears a grass skirt or whether she's premier or not. I don't support her, and it has nothing to do with her being a woman. And let me answer this, and then I think we're gonna have to cut the show because unfortunately I've got to go. But whether you are a woman, a man, or anything in between, that has nothing to do with your ability to lead. And it has nothing to do with you being honest. It has nothing to do with you being a Judas. It has nothing to do with you being duplicitous or any of those things. Good morning, Sandra speaking. Hi. Good, thanks. I'm actually not at the location, but we probably got people that are coming in and out. What sort of, I think your team's actually going out there tomorrow to do a site visit, but what's the alarm? Somebody turned it on, forgot to turn it off. I'm not sure. I'm actually on live radio right now, so I can't give that to you. I just picked up the phone, but it's Sandra Hill. I can't give a password because I've got like almost 300 people listening to the show. Okay, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure what that is. Maybe you could give Marlon a call. He's also on, you should have his contact details on there. Yeah? Okay, thank you. All righty, bye-bye. I can't help you with that right now. And I definitely can't give you a password where 300 people can hear my password. So I know Tracy's like, get your appointment set. It was the only one that he had today, and I gotta get my shoulder worked on. But yeah, let me say this. So it has nothing to do with her being a woman. And you don't automatically get a pass because you're a woman. In fact, that does a disservice to all women in this world who, we want to be able to stand on merit. We don't want to get a pass just because we're a woman. That to me, that doesn't bode well for anybody. And that's what a lot of people say. Oh yeah, women want special treatment. It's just like Black people. Black people don't want special treatment because we're Black. We want the same opportunities as everybody else to be able to do what we know we can do, right? Take it out of the equation. Take her sex out of the equation. To me, that has nothing to do whatsoever with this situation. Darlene says, give the new government a break. Let's join hands and hearts and pray for our leaders. You can't, Miss Darlene, I'm willing to give anybody an opportunity to prove themselves or not. But when the foundation is based on lies, like what we're hearing here, when the foundation is quicksand and you get into it in a duplicitous way, why on earth would we give you a break? You got it all wrong. You got it in the wrong way. You didn't go about it the right way. You didn't do it honestly. You're talking to the people, addressing them for the record, and you're being dishonest. You're being duplicitous. How can I support that? I can't support that. And that's the problem. That compromises me, what I believe, especially when it comes to honesty. If you can't even, and the thing about it is she didn't have to speak on it, right? She didn't have to say any of that. She could have just kept her mouth shut, says, hey, I'm premier. Whatever happened behind closed doors, it's done, whatever, let's just move on. Instead, she's creating this narrative to try to make herself look good. The team was begging her to be a leader when that was actually not the case. Nobody was begging her to be a leader. Hello? Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yep. It's what? Sorry? Yeah, that's why they're going out there tomorrow, because there's an error with that one. So they need to fix it. Yeah, they're aware of a situation with that. I think were they going out there today? I can't remember if they were going today, but I think they're scheduled to go tomorrow. So you can call Lauren from the office and they're supposed to go fix that, because that's an issue that they should be aware of. Okay, no problem. Bye-bye. Good Lord. Anyway, I gotta run. Let me just shoot off a quick email. That third floor. Okay. Okay. All right, folks. So, yeah, I mean, that's the problem. Like, you can't start off with that dishonesty and lack of integrity and then sit on a radio show and talk about, you know, how much integrity you have and this, that, and the next thing. You're not going to get me on board with that. You know, start with honesty. So Ms. Darlene says that anything that begins wrong must end bad. Well, that's my point. And I can't support dishonesty, and I can't support this, you know, duplicitous nature, whether she's a man, woman, or I don't even know what she is. To me, it doesn't matter what she is, right? And, you know, on the one hand, maybe as a woman, and knowing how hard we have had to fight to even get a little position in politics, we're still the minority. This is the most women that we've had in the Legislative Assembly. I also feel that it is our obligation to stand up and speak for certain things, right? We know that women leaders can be some of the best leaders in the world. We're less likely to go to war when women are in charge. We're less likely to, you know, women, when they're the right type of leader, can really do amazing things for countries and organizations. When they're the wrong kind of leader, that's when I don't care if they're a man, woman, transvestite, I don't give two hoots. They got to go. Because that can really set off a detrimental, you know, flow of events, just like we see now, poor fiscal management decisions being made within the first week. Oh, let's win over the vote by, you know, having people, giving people money. And that's going to be the answer. That's not the answer. You know, money doesn't, as someone who talked about, she doesn't even worry about money, that money is not the end all and be all. It's so funny that that's the first thing you do when you go in there is throw money at people. It is what it is, folks. We'll obviously continue to monitor the situation. I'll listen to the rest of it because I do want to get that clip where she promises Radio Cayman that they're going to get more money, not because they're doing a fantastic job or, you know, any of that kind of stuff. They're going to get more money just because she wants to give them more money. She likes the ass kissing that's happening in the studio. And I think she's trying to take a dig at other people, but we don't get money from government, so we don't really care. You can bury GIS and Radio Cayman with all the money in the world. It's really not going to impact us. You're just wasting the people's money. I'm going to be very, very frank and honest. It doesn't have anything. It's not like we're going to get less money because you're giving them more money. You're just giving an organization which you all yourselves have said hasn't lived up to your standards more money, and that's on you. Give money to people who aren't living up to your standards. That sounds like a recipe for disaster when it comes to the civil service. So Albert says, at the end of the day, there's no woman more qualified than her to be the premier. Facts. Again, this isn't about her being a woman. Why did she have to be premier at all? She's already been premier. And the general consensus is within her own ranks, as well as without, the majority of people do not want her to be premier. Anyway, that'll be your poll question this week. Who you would have picked as premier if you had an